My sister thought she was the main character in a romance novel. To get the attention of the bigshot CEO, she slapped him across the face. He didn't retaliate, but she took it as him playing hard to get. Then she went and ruined his engagement party. Our whole family was ready to go broke trying to appease his anger, but instead, she dragged us all into a dangerous mess involving some criminal connections in Mexico. After being held captive and meeting a tragic end, I suddenly woke up, back on the very day my sister first slapped that CEO. This time, we weren't going to repeat our mistakes. When I opened my eyes and saw my sister, I was completely stunned. 1 second, I was trapped in a nightmare, and the next, I was back in a glittering banquet hall. I looked over at Mom and Dad. They seemed just as disoriented as I felt. Was this a second chance? Had everything gone so horribly wrong last time that some force gave us an opportunity to fix it? Before I could process it further, my sister, Ashley, yanked her arm from mine, stormed through the elegant crowd surrounding Blake Sterling, and slapped him. Hard. The room fell into stunned silence. Ashley raised her chin, her voice laced with arrogance. Just because you have a few bucks doesn't mean you can look down on people. Who do you think you are? That was Blake Sterling, one of the most influential men in the entire city. He could destroy someone's reputation with a single call, so how did she dare? The last time she did this, Blake had chosen not to retaliate. But Ashley, in her delusion, took that as a romantic gesture and began following him relentlessly. Eventually, Blake had her exiled to Mexico, and our parents sold nearly everything to bring her back. But what happened to me? I didn't even want to think about it. I grabbed Mom and Dad and quietly led them to a far corner of the hall. This time, she could deal with her own choices. Blake frowned, clearly annoyed, and calmly wiped his cheek with a handkerchief. The woman beside him gasped in disbelief. Ashley's eyes welled up. Blake Sterling. You're so rude. Just because you have money doesn't mean you can treat people like dirt. Blake remained composed. Well, miss, from where I stand, you're the one lacking manners. I don't believe polite people go around slapping strangers. Ashley blinked in disbelief. You don't recognize me? He looked her over briefly. Miss, should I? Her cheeks turned red. Ashley pressed on, her voice cracking. Last week. At Town Square. Didn't you look at me? Why would you look at me if you didn't know who I was? Even I had to fight the urge to groan. People around us were already trying not to laugh. Blake took a small step back, keeping his poise. If my glance bothered you, then I apologize. But last week, I was at Town Square with my fiancé. I was probably looking for her, not staring at you. I was silently impressed. The way he handled her bizarre accusation with grace and even offered an apology. That level of restraint came from real class. I thought it was over. But Ashley wasn't done. So your fiancé is here today too? She asked. Blake smiled slightly, spinning the ring on his finger. Of course. Ashley's expression hardened. She looked at him like she'd uncovered some deep betrayal. So that's it, you don't want to admit anything because she's here. That's fine. We'll see each other again. I'll save you from this fake business deal of a marriage. She wiped her eyes dramatically and stormed out, leaving behind a sea of confused and uncomfortable guests. Dad looked at Mom, face twisted. You don't think we raised a completely clueless kid, do you? Mom glared at him. Would it make you feel better if we had? Just like she said, Ashley didn't stop. A few days later, I was sorting equipment at school when I got a call from the police. At the station, Ashley was red-faced and shouting at Blake. Blake looked tired. I don't even know her. My fiancé and I were heading out on a date. We parked on the street for half an hour, and when we got back, my car was smashed. Then this woman started yelling insults at my fiancé. His voice was calm, but you could see the frustration behind it. Ashley cut in, furious. She's already gone, and you still won't admit you know me? Is it really that embarrassing to acknowledge our relationship? The officer beside them looked like he was watching a soap opera. Ashley teared up again. A single drop slid down her cheek, and the officer started giving Blake judgmental looks. Blake inhaled deeply to keep himself calm. First, I have no idea what relationship you're talking about. Second, you insulted my fiancé, smashed my car, and ruined our evening. Don't you think you owe someone an apology? Ashley didn't back down. So what? I know you and your fiancé are just pretending. It's a business thing, right? You don't need to defend her. Blake gave a dry laugh and held up a hand. Enough. He looked directly at her. Yes, it's true our families arrange things for business reasons. But it's also true I love her. I'm the one who proposed. Ashley stared at him, stunned. And this relationship you keep mentioning, he continued, are you talking about the time you slapped me at a public event, or when you smashed my car and cursed out my partner? The officers' faces changed instantly. Ashley turned to me, desperate now, sis. Please. Say something. Help me. She wanted to drag me into this? Blake's eyes turned to me, sharp and questioning. I looked at my sister's trembling face and replied, slowly. What do you expect me to say? Ashley paused. She had always been the frail one in our family, so we spoiled her endlessly. We bent over backward to meet her every whim, afraid that even a little resistance might hurt her feelings. But today felt different. She jabbed her finger at me, her tone harsh and full of entitlement. You can't think for yourself? Ashley, are you deaf? I scoffed, stepped forward, swatted her finger away, and slapped her across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Ashley stood frozen in disbelief. The shift in my demeanor must have startled everyone. It certainly startled her. She always expected me to shrink away. Not today. As the police tried to intervene and calm things down, I clenched my jaw and snapped, do you seriously think you're some romance novel heroine and the world revolves around you? Just because Blake looked at you once, you think he's into you? You even slapped him at the banquet hall to get his attention. Ashley, are you even thinking straight? She was exposed, raw, angry, humiliated. With one side of her face already turning red, she screamed, what are you talking about, you little brat? What do you mean I think? It's obvious that Blake is just pretending to be distant because he's into me. That's how it always goes in love stories. Even if I hadn't read at every twist and turn in those books, I knew what respect and common sense looked like. I ignored her. She kept threatening to tell Mom and Dad that I was ganging up on her with outsiders. I turned to Blake and bowed deeply. I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling. My sister caused you trouble. Blake's expression softened, and for a brief moment, he looked at me not with anger, but understanding. I remembered my past and how much I had endured while living in Mexico, clawing my way through hardship without a safety net. I had learned to speak up for myself. Looking him in the eyes, I said, Mr. Sterling, since my sister damaged your car, I believe she should take full responsibility for her actions. Neither my parents nor I will pay for the damage. It's time she realizes that actions have consequences. Blake paused for a moment before nodding. I can tell your family has some tough dynamics. My lawyer will be in touch. I need to get going. With that, he turned and left, followed by his secretary carrying his bags. Ashley just stood there, completely stunned by what I had done. She had always seen herself as the heroine in a grand love story, one where the world revolved around her desires. At 23, she still clung to that delusion while living off our parents. Getting her to pay for a luxury Maybach she damaged? That would be like asking her to climb Everest in flip-flops. But if she thought for a second that I was going to help her pay for it, she was dreaming. Our family wasn't poor, but we weren't foolish either. There was no way I'd lift a finger for that. I shot Ashley a cold look and walked out of the police station. Behind me, the police restrained her as she screamed and struggled, and I used the chaos to call my parents. Mom? Dad? We need to talk. As expected, Ashley arrived home in tears. Young, entitled, and now $200,000 in debt. What a future. Before our parents could even ask what had happened, she pointed at me and shouted, Mom. She set me up. She humiliated me in front of everyone, and now I'm stuck with a $200,000 debt. Mom, lounging on the couch and watching her soap opera, finally set down the remote and gave Ashley a weary look. Are you serious right now? You're saying your sister embarrassed you? If you hadn't smashed Mr. Sterling's car and refused to apologize, would she have said a word to you? I sat quietly at the dining table, going over my lesson plans. We had coddled Ashley her entire life. No one had ever told her no. No one had ever corrected her. And for Mom to finally call her out? That was new. Predictably, Ashley exploded. She knocked over the fruit bowl on the coffee table. How can you all treat me like this? You're taking a stranger's side over mine? Blake likes me. He's just shy. And you, she pointed at me again, you just had to go and ruin everything by making yourself look better in front of him. Dad, who usually adored Ashley, chuckled dryly. Blake likes you? Then how come no one else can see it but you? We've got a mirror at home, sweetheart. Maybe use it. Sometimes I wonder if your mom and I raised a dreamer or just someone completely out of touch with reality. Even I winced a little. Dad had always been the one to defend her the most. Ashley's eyes turned glassy, and she whined in that high-pitched voice that made my skin crawl. Dad, why would you say that to me? He rolled his eyes and sighed. You're in your 20s and still living in some make-believe world where you're the star of a soap opera. Even I know I'm not the male lead in anyone's story. Ashley realized she was losing ground with Dad, so she turned her frustration toward me. You told them, didn't you? She hissed. You told them bad things about me. I looked up from my lesson plans with a smirk. Did you say something to them to badmouth me? She fumed. I calmly added, what exactly did I say? You wrecked Mr. Sterling's car all on your own. You want us to cover it for you? You've been doing this since you were a kid, I continued. Remember when you tried to impress that boy in school by being reckless? Now you're just doing it on a larger scale. Don't you think it's time you grew up? Ashley had always had unusual behavior. When she was 7, she once invited a stranger she met at the park to our house, claiming she wanted to rescue him. At 9, she lied about her age online and got into a scary situation. At 12, she wandered off with a neighborhood toddler, thinking she could start a babysitting adventure. Each time, Mom, Dad, and I had to clean up after her. Once, she claimed she was living a tragic love story and doused a classmate with hot tea because she thought he'd hurt her feelings. We had to pay a fortune in damages. Now, Ashley stood in the living room, surrounded by the people who had always protected her, and felt like a stranger among us. For the first time, no one was shielding her. No one was standing up for her. Her sadness turned into anger. She kicked the coffee table, eyes blazing with misplaced conviction. Just wait. I'll show you all. Blake does like me. I am the heroine of this story. She wiped her tears and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The room fell silent. Dad, Mom, and I exchanged uncertain glances. Dad looked at the smashed fruit on the floor and the overturned coffee table. He swallowed hard. After a long pause, he muttered under his breath, did we ever get her checked when she was born? Mom blinked, confused. What do you mean? Dad pointed at the mess and whispered, half joking, half worried, I mean, is it possible she's just living in a completely different reality? After that day, Ashley didn't come home. Mom, Dad, and we were relieved. The house felt quieter, lighter. For the first time in years, we could breathe. But Ashley was still Ashley. After publicly slapping Blake and destroying his luxury Maybach, you'd think she'd lie low and reflect. Instead, she doubled down on her delusions. She showed up at the gates of the Sterling estate, in the pouring rain, no less, dressed in a flimsy white dress, kneeling on the pavement like some tragic movie heroine. With mascara streaming down her cheeks and a bouquet of wilted flowers in her hands, she wailed for Blake to come out and face her. Her voice trembled as she claimed, loudly and shamelessly, that Blake had taken her virginity and needed to do the right thing by being with her. It didn't matter that no such thing had ever happened. She was playing to the crowd. And unfortunately for everyone involved, she got one. Because that day wasn't just any day, it was the engagement party of Blake Sterling and his fiancée, Jennifer Lancaster. That's right. Ashley stormed a private, high-profile engagement party with fabricated accusations and melodramatic theatrics, believing, truly believing, that she was there to rescue her relationship with Blake from being destroyed by some evil other woman. She even pushed past the estate security guards, got on her knees in front of Jennifer and shouted, Blake and I are in love. You need to step aside. This engagement is a mistake. Blake, usually so stoic and hard to read, looked as if he'd seen a ghost. His entire body stiffened as Ashley clung to his arm like a shipwreck survivor. Blake, I know you love me. She pleaded. You don't have to go through with this business arrangement. Run away with me. The crowd was horrified. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Whispers grew louder. Jennifer stood to the side, silent but composed, her posture regal despite the chaos. Blake broke free of Ashley's grip and ran to Jennifer, his voice shaking. "Baby, I swear I don't know what she's talking about. I didn't touch her. You have to believe me." Jennifer turned slowly toward Ashley, the calm in her eyes more threatening than any anger could have been. Ashley's face twisted into a sneer. "What are you looking at? You're just a mistress trying to steal what's mine." Jennifer tilted her head slightly. "You're accusing me of being the other woman? Then tell me, when and where exactly did this supposed affair between you and Blake happen?" Blake opened his mouth to speak, but Ashley cut in. "Yesterday. At the motel by Town Square." The reaction was immediate. Several guests gasped and backed away. The tension thickened. Ashley didn't even realize how absurd she sounded. My parents and I stood toward the back of the crowd, watching it all unfold in disbelief. Jennifer smiled thinly and turned toward the Sterling family patriarch, seated on a grand chair, observing silently. "Grandfather," she said gently, "if I remember correctly, Blake went on a business trip with you yesterday. He was with you all day and only returned this morning, wasn't he?" The old man, who hadn't spoken until that moment, cracked a smile and nodded in confirmation. Ashley's eyes darted around nervously. "I must have gotten the date wrong," she stammered. "It was the day before that." "Yes, the day before." Jennifer didn't miss a beat. "Oh? I didn't realize Blake had a twin brother. Because he was with me the entire night before. Are you saying there's another Blake we don't know about?" That drew a ripple of laughter from the guests. Ashley stood frozen, completely out of things to say. Jennifer's voice turned icy sweet. "If you need more time to come up with a convincing lie, by all means, take it. My fiancé and I have an engagement to finish." The crowd around them chuckled. Some even applauded. Ashley, humiliated and defeated, had no choice but to leave, this time under the escort of two guards who gently but firmly showed her the way out. The Sterling family hadn't rented out a grand hotel ballroom for the party. They had chosen their estate, keeping things intimate and open only to those who truly mattered. Still, word of what happened would travel fast. My parents and I quietly exited before anyone noticed us. But just as we stepped out, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was a message from Ashley. Just 5 words. "Why are you so useless?" Mom and Dad were walking just ahead of me. As I caught up, I saw Dad glance at his own phone, his jaw tightening. Mom didn't say anything. But her silence was louder than any words. Ashley had sent the same message to all 3 of us. I clenched my fists, my voice low. "She's not going to give up. We need to be careful these next few days." Mom and Dad nodded without hesitation. The truth was, we all still remembered how we died last time. Ashley had always fancied herself a Cinderella figure, poor, misunderstood, and destined for a magical ending with a rich prince. But she never understood that real high society wasn't about fairy tales. It was about lineage, legacy, reputation. It was about knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to move in a room full of power without drawing foolish attention. Ashley had none of that. No poise. No grace. No awareness of how deeply her actions could tarnish everything and everyone around her. She was chaos dressed in pastel. That night, after we returned home, Dad finally broke the silence. "She's going to try something else." "I know," I said. "She thinks she's the victim in a drama. But she's not the lead. She's not even in the cast anymore. She still has the power to damage everything we've rebuilt," Mom murmured. "We gave her everything she ever wanted. We protected her even when she didn't deserve it. And this is how she repays us?" Dad's voice was tight with fatigue. "If she comes after us again, we need to be ready." I nodded. This time, no more blind loyalty. No more covering for her. The memory of that last life lingered like a bruise on the soul. We had paid too high a price for her delusions once. We wouldn't do it again. Maybe that day really broke something inside her. Ashley disappeared for weeks. No calls, no messages. It was like she had vanished into thin air. At first, we felt relief. Peace returned to the house. But deep down, we knew it wouldn't last. A month later, she came back, without warning, without a word. She walked in through the front door looking thinner, paler. Her hair was messy, and her eyes had a far-off look in them. She went straight to her room and locked herself in. She cried for days. Loud sobs. Then quiet ones. Then just silence. Despite everything, she was still my sister. A part of me remembered the Ashley who used to hug me when I had nightmares, the one who used to sneak snacks into my room when I was grounded. And as much as I hated what she had become, I couldn't stand to see her like this. So one night, after dinner, I stood outside her door and knocked. No answer. I turned the knob slowly, it wasn't locked this time, and walked in. She was curled up in the corner, hugging something to her chest. The only light in the room was the dim nightlight on her desk. I took a cautious step forward. Ashley? She didn't move. I took another step and caught a glimpse of what she was holding, and my stomach dropped. It was a raw piece of meat. Bloodied? Clutched tight in her hands like it was something precious. I gasped. Where had she been all this time? Ashley slowly turned her head toward me. Her eyes were wide and empty, her pupils dilated. She looked at me, but through me, as if I were a shadow. And then she smiled. A slow, twisted grin. She muttered, "It's all your fault. All of you. If our family had money and power, how could Jennifer ever look down on me?" She took a step forward. I could smell the iron and the rot. It made my skin crawl. What is she, huh? Ashley continued, voice trembling with fury. Just because she's rich, she gets to have everything? She gets to be admired, loved, respected. While I get laughed at? I took a step back, but she was faster. She lunged across the bed and grabbed me by the collar with blood-smeared hands. I should be the one standing beside Blake, she growled. I should be the daughter-in-law of the Sterling family. That should have been my life. I stared at her, wide-eyed, frozen in shock. Then, on instinct, I pushed her hard, sending her stumbling backward onto the bed. Ashley lay there for a moment, blinking like she didn't understand what had just happened. Then she sat up, panting. She laughed, high-pitched and erratic. Why? Why didn't he fall in love with me at first sight? Her voice cracked. He was supposed to. Just like in the stories. I was supposed to win him over. Not Jennifer. She looked toward the window, muttering to herself. She's pregnant, you know. But she'll give it up. For her career. She doesn't deserve to be the head of the Jennifer family or part of the Sterlings. I could have been both. If I got rid of her. That was when I knew, she had completely lost touch with reality. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Last time, because we let Ashley ruin Blake and Jennifer's engagement, everything spiraled. Their relationship barely survived. I had always felt guilty for not stopping her sooner. This time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. I stepped back, keeping my eyes on her. Jennifer can't be the head of the Sterling family? So who should be, you? Still dreaming of being some romance novel heroine? Ashley froze. Her eyes locked on mine, and slowly, her expression darkened. After a beat, she sneered. It's your fault. All of it? If you had worked harder, made something of yourself, maybe I wouldn't be second best in this family. She was gone, mentally, emotionally. Lost in a world of blame and fantasy. I walked out, closed the door, and locked it from the outside. Mom and Dad were already outside, their faces pale with worry. She's not okay, I whispered. We need to do something. Now. Mom wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. Your dad and I. We already contacted a private hospital. We're planning to admit her in a few days. Dad nodded, though his shoulders looked heavier than ever before. If she stays here, she could hurt someone. Or herself. Even though I knew they were right, a part of me still ached. I hated seeing my sister this way. I hated what she'd become, but I also hated that it had come to this. Suddenly, the crying from Ashley's room stopped. We stood there frozen. She had heard us. The silence stretched long and heavy until Dad stepped forward, tapping gently on her door with his cane. Ashley, he said, voice low. Sweetheart. It's time to get help. This isn't good for anyone. Please, just listen to us. No reply. Only quiet. Then, slowly, we heard soft sobbing again. Tears welled in Mom's eyes. We walked away, hearts heavy. The day we took Ashley to the hospital, she acted strangely calm. Gone were the wild eyes, the manic rants, the screaming. She was polite. Quiet. Cooperative. She even smiled at us. We wanted to believe she was getting better. We were fools. While Mom helped her pack, Ashley slipped away. Dad was the first to notice. She was just in the living room. Where is she? Panic set in. I searched every room. Mom called her name. Then we heard it, the unmistakable sound of a lock clicking shut. We turned toward her room. Ashley stood behind the locked door, her face pressed to the window, her eyes cold and full of rage. Before we could react, a sudden roar shook the floor beneath us. Flames. The curtains burst into fire. It spread instantly. The smell of gasoline hit us like a wave, and it all made sense. Ashley had spent the past days quietly soaking parts of the house in accelerant. And we hadn't noticed. Dad ran to the door, trying to break it down. Ashley just smirked and dropped the key into the gutter outside. Mom called emergency services, her voice shaking. I ran to the bathroom, soaked towels, and handed them out. We covered our mouths and tried to escape. But the basement door was near the kitchen, where the fire was already creeping. The smoke was too thick. The air was unbreathable. Before I lost consciousness, I felt my parents' arms around me, shielding me with their bodies. My last thought was, are we really going to die again? But I woke up. The thick scent of antiseptic replaced the smoke. I opened my eyes slowly to white walls, a monitor beeping beside me. I was in a hospital. Mom sat at my bedside. The moment she saw me stir, her eyes flooded with tears. Ashley, you're awake. Thank God. Her voice trembled, but it sounded like music compared to the chaos of that night. I broke into tears. Mom pulled me into a hug, and I could feel her shoulders shaking with relief. We were alive. But nothing would ever be the same again. Dad entered the hospital room slowly, his arm tightly wrapped in thick gauze. The moment I saw him, I wanted to ask what had happened, how he got hurt, whether Mom was okay, but my throat was dry and sore, and no sound came out. He noticed me trying to sit up and hurried over, gently holding my shoulder down. His voice, hoarse and tired, sounded foreign to me. Ashley's gone, he said quietly. We don't know where she ran off to. Your mom and I have called everyone we could think of, but her phone is off. Just stay home for now. Don't go to school. Rest. Dad, the man who always stood tall, whose back had never once bowed to stress or injury, now looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. I didn't think, he whispered. I thought Ashley was just spoiled. I didn't think she'd go that far. Mom was standing in the corner. She hadn't said a word since Dad entered the room. She trembled slightly, and when I looked at her, I saw silent tears sliding down her cheeks. After what felt like an eternity, she broke the silence with a sob. We called the police. Right after the fire. They came as soon as they could. Her voice cracked as she spoke. I frowned slightly, urging her to continue. They investigated the source of the fire, she said, her lips quivering. They said it wasn't an accident. It was set deliberately. I blinked. Of course it was. But then she added, voice barely audible, they found traces of an improvised incendiary device. My entire body tensed. A homemade explosive? We weren't rich. We weren't involved in anything criminal. Who would give something like that to Ashley? And why? And then I remembered. The thing she had been holding that night, sitting on her bedroom floor, soaked in blood. A horrible realization hit me like a truck. I reached for my phone, my hands still weak but determined. I typed a short message and handed it to Mom. Check the hospital nearby. See if Ashley had a procedure recently. Something related to pregnancy. She looked at me in shock. Dad took the phone from her hands, read the message, and walked out without a word, his expression clouded and dark. 2 hours passed. They felt like days. Then Dad returned with a medical report in hand. He handed it to me wordlessly. I looked down. 3 months pregnant. The words blurred behind my tears. Mom covered her mouth, trying not to sob again. Dad stared at the paper, then quietly folded it and set it aside. He picked up the phone and called emergency services. Ashley is dangerous, he said simply. She needs help. And someone needs to stop her before someone else gets hurt. I knew what I had to do. Out of the last ounce of responsibility I still felt for our family, I contacted Jennifer and Blake and told them everything about Ashley's disappearance, the fire, and her unstable condition. They were silent on the other end of the call. Then, a few days later, a wedding invitation arrived. It was from Blake. Despite everything, they were moving forward with their plans. I stared at the elegant cream-colored envelope and felt a strange wave of emotion rise inside me. Bitterness. Sadness. Relief. If Ashley hadn't lost her way, things could have been different. On the day of the wedding, Mom, Dad, and I entered the beautifully decorated banquet hall. The atmosphere was elegant but tense. Security guards stood at every entrance. Even the waitstaff seemed extra alert. We were led to a table near the family. I looked around nervously, silently praying, "Please, not today. Don't let anything happen today." Although the police had issued an arrest warrant, Ashley still hadn't been found. We suspected she had sought shelter with an old lover, someone from her past we had never approved of. I glanced at Mom. She was scanning the room, just like me. Jennifer and Blake came over to greet us. Despite the whispers that followed them across the room, Jennifer smiled softly. "Don't be nervous," she said. "I just wanted to thank you for telling us everything." Blake nodded politely. "We've arranged full security. No one without an invitation can get in." That helped ease the tension in my chest. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, they returned to their table. They looked perfect together, steady, balanced. The image of what Ashley had always wanted to be, but never could. And in that moment, I felt it. Sadness. I had imagined my sister walking down the aisle someday, wearing white, smiling genuinely, holding someone's hand not because of status or wealth, but because of love. Mom must have been thinking the same thing. I caught her eyes glancing around the room, then slowly drifting to the door. The ceremony began. A hush fell over the room as the string quartet began playing. The tall double doors opened slowly. Guests turned, smiling in anticipation. Security stood in position. Everything seemed perfect. Blake reached for the ring. And that's when we heard it. A loud, sharp bang. My entire body went cold. Gasps rippled through the room. The music stopped. Behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of safety catches being released, security officers drawing their weapons. A figure stepped forward, dragging someone with her. Ashley. She was holding a sharp object, the blade pressed against the neck of an elderly man. My breath caught. It was the sterling patriarch. Even from across the room, I could see his frozen expression. Ashley's eyes were wide and wild. Her hair was a mess, her dress torn. And then I saw it, her stomach. She was visibly pregnant again. Jennifer took a step forward, her voice calm. "Ashley, what are you doing?" Ashley turned her gaze toward her, and her expression changed. From dazed to furious in an instant. "You ruined everything," she screamed. "You stole my place. I should have been the one standing there today." The crowd watched in stunned silence. The guards didn't dare move. Not while the knife was so close to the patriarch's throat. "Ashley," Blake said gently, raising his hands. "Let him go. You don't have to do this." Ashley's arm trembled, but the rage in her voice didn't. "You all made me into a villain," she hissed. "You laughed at me, ignored me, threw me away. But now you'll see. You'll all see." Jennifer stepped forward again, slow and measured. "Ashley, look at your arm." Everyone could see it now, dark bruises covered her skin. She had been hurt. Badly? But by whom? Where had she been all these months? Who had fed her this madness? And who gave her that weapon? The questions piled up, but we had no time for answers. Ashley's breathing was erratic. Her hand trembled. And then, just as suddenly as she arrived, her knees buckled. She collapsed. The blade clattered to the ground. Security rushed forward. The old man was unharmed, though shaken. Medical staff ran to check Ashley. She was unconscious. Exhausted. Physically and mentally. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, I saw her face one last time. Tears had dried on her cheeks. But it was too late for apologies. Too late for a new beginning. Too late to undo everything. Blake stood in front of Jennifer, shielding her, but his eyes locked onto Ashley with a sharpness that cut through the chaos. "Ashley," he said firmly, "I don't know why you hate my wife so much. After Leon was done with you, he sent you to a massage parlor. Jennifer was the one who paid to get you out. She even gave you money to start over. And now you're claiming she ruined your life?" His words hit like thunder. Mom, Dad, and I were speechless. No wonder Ashley had disappeared for so long. She had been in a place no one could imagine. It all made sense now. The secrecy, the strange behavior, the way she had spiraled. And Leon. I had seen him on the news before, linked to organized crime and under police surveillance. That's where she got the explosives. That's who gave her the means to hurt people. Ashley's eyes widened as she screamed, "That's not true. That's not how it happened. It was supposed to be like in the novels. I stayed there because I thought Blake would come save me. But this woman, she ruined everything." The guests were stunned into silence. A few even gasped. I clenched my fists. She was still comparing her life to fiction? Blake's jaw tightened. "Even if you stayed there for 8 years or 10, I wouldn't fall in love with you. I've always loved Jennifer. She's the one I'll face everything with. She's the one I choose." Ashley's voice cracked. "That's not fair. Jennifer is just richer, prettier, smarter. If I had money, I could do all those things too." Blake let out a short, humorless laugh. "Some things have nothing to do with money. When the Jennifer family faced a financial crisis, her uncle ran off with all the company's assets. Jennifer stood alone and rebuilt everything. That's something you could never do. She didn't break. She fought." Ashley's eyes filled with tears. "How can that be? I should be the Sterling family's daughter-in-law. Jennifer got rid of your child just to focus on her career. How could someone like her deserve that position?" She turned toward Blake with trembling lips. "Shouldn't a daughter-in-law be a weak woman who needs to be protected?" Jennifer took a step forward, gently moving Blake aside and dismissing the bodyguards. Her voice was calm, but unshakable. "Ashley, let me explain something very clearly. Before a child is born, it is part of my body. I had the right to decide whether to continue that pregnancy or not. That choice was mine, and mine alone. It has nothing to do with you." Ashley's expression twisted, her face flushed with confusion and frustration. Jennifer continued, "Second, I don't know how many romance novels you've read, but this isn't a story. You keep telling yourself you're meant to be the Sterling family's daughter-in-law, but I hope you can see clearly now. I'm the one standing beside Blake. I am his wife. Legally. In every sense." Ashley clenched her fists, trying to suppress the fury building within her. "So what?" she snapped. "How can a childhood friend compete with fate? He's mine. You think your relationship is that strong? It's not. You're just convenient." She turned toward the old man seated at the front of the room, Blake's grandfather. Her eyes glinted. "This is all your fault," she screamed. "If you hadn't arranged this marriage, he never would have ended up with her." Then, in a single horrifying moment, she raised the knife and lunged at the patriarch. Jennifer acted instinctively. She grabbed a flower pot from the nearby table and hurled it at Ashley with surprising force. It hit. Ashley screamed and dropped the knife as she stumbled backward. My eyes widened in shock. Jennifer, elegant, refined, and calm, had just saved a life without blinking. For a moment, she didn't seem like a socialite. She seemed like a warrior. But before anyone could react, Ashley's hand went into her pocket. "Stop her," I shouted. Then came the explosion. A smaller blast this time, enough to scatter people, to ignite the nearby decorations. Fire spread rapidly. Smoke filled the air. Screams erupted from all corners of the room. Ashley was tackled by the bodyguards and pinned to the ground. Her hair was wild, her eyes bloodshot, but even now, even in flames, she looked victorious. She looked at me. And then she smiled. Her lips moved, barely audible over the chaos. "Ashley, I told you. I'm the heroine of this story." The fire intensified. Blake grabbed Jennifer, pulling off his jacket to shield her as they rushed through the smoke with the other guests. But Ashley didn't run. She broke free. And she turned back toward the flames. Before disappearing into the fire, she looked over her shoulder at Blake and smiled. "Blake," she said, "from now on, you'll only find me in your dreams." I grabbed Blake's arm and pushed him forward. "Go. Go with Jennifer. If the fire spreads, no one will make it out in time. Ashley turned her gaze to me and screamed, Ashley. You can't stand to see me happy, can you? I stopped in my tracks and looked back at her, heart aching. It's not that I don't want to see you happy, I said softly. It's that you never wanted any of us to be. She stood still for a moment, eyes wide. You were never the heroine. You were the villain in someone else's story. I turned around and walked away. Her screams followed me. And then they were gone. Ashley died that day. After the guards pulled her from the flames once, she had broken free. She ran back into the fire. No one could stop her. Her final words echoed like a ghost, You'll have to find me in your dreams. I hugged Mom tightly. As the fire consumed what was left, Mom gently patted my hand. Let's go, sweetheart, she whispered. I didn't look back. We walked toward the car. It was over. The sky had already turned black. The stars were hidden behind the smoke. The fire raged for hours, but by the time the flames died down, the celebration had turned into ashes. Blake and Jennifer had gone to the hospital hours earlier. I helped Mom and Dad into the car, both of them exhausted but unharmed. I turned one last time toward the charred remains of the banquet hall. And then I walked away. It was over. The final chapter of Ashley's tragedy had been written in fire. And for the first time in a long time, the rest of us were free.